Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Wilds Beta. This time I've just got a pile of things that are just interesting or useful to know for your own gameplay in this beta. You know, a lot of just cool stuff that they've done. So let's get into it. Let's start with the setting to do with anti-arachnophobia and how that applies to more than just spiders. What it actually does though turns out to be way funnier than I imagined it to be. Let's take these insectoids. These are a new type called the bullockchi. They're basically new small monsters. So that's a small monster. It is not a spider, but I guess it would trigger arachnophobia. If you want to turn this setting on, then you need to go back to the main menu, so come out of the game, and it'll be under the kind of extra assistance options. Turn it on, come back into the game, and it'll be working. Now we go back to the same location where they're hanging on the ceiling, and as you can see, they're a little bit different now. What it's doing is it's turning them completely into new models. These living slimes. Now, to me, this would set off some other kind of phobia, at least in my head, but I guess for people that really hate arachnids of any kind, slimes are a lot less offensive. Anyway, how they behave is kind of funny, their little steps, and also when they grab you, it's like you're being kind of full consumed by the slime. The very same animation, but it looks totally different considering the circumstances. So yeah, the anti-arachnophobia setting is certainly something to know about, and if you like the idea of living slimes being a few enemies here or there, it's also fine to have on. But next, let's talk about the weapon and understanding how it works. My biggest advice or tip for you guys right now is 100% to actually pull up the menu. Under the info tab, the fourth one, you can come down to the play guide, where you have weapon controls. Here you'll get lots of extra additional information about each and every weapon. Here's all the individual attacks and options for, say, a greatsword, and then we have the other tab for combos that you can do. While there aren't going to be detailed weapon guides that exist online right now, if you really want to learn more about your weapon and what's new in Wilds, I would check out these pages. And I want to give you a specific example for me. I've been covering dual blades and all the weapons in general. I played this before at Gamescom. I have a lot of information from understanding and researching and watching others play. But I obviously didn't have it all because I didn't have access to the weapon controls page. So for dual blades, you have all these individual attacks. We also have all the different combos, but you also have this page that tells you about different weapon properties, the kind of effects of them. And under this tab here, Demon Boost Mode, we learn about the new Perfect Evade Demon Dodge mode. What this is you're about to be hit, you do a perfect evade, you get this blue buff. For about 8 seconds, you have this buff that means when you evade, you also attack. And you can even extend it with a new combo attack that's kind of a spiral spin. In any case, what I didn't know about this mode is that it boosts both your regular and element damage while it's going, alongside allowing you to attack while dodging. That is insanely important to know for the new meta of Wild's dual blade. It means that ideally we want to be activating this perfect evade to maintain the highest DPS possible. Not just, oh, sometimes I'm going to get hit and I get a perfect evade. Not just, oh, it's nice to attack while I evade. It is a damage boost, and so it's way more important than I initially knew. So check your weapon controls, look through this, you might learn something quite impactful. Speaking of the weapon tutorials and information that you might be interested in, especially for those of you who aren't currently able to play because you don't have the PlayStation 5 with PS5 Plus or whatever, there is this webpage here. If you type in manual.capcom.com and bring yourself to the Monster Hunter Wilds beta page, you'll see this, which is essentially just a manual page with loads of information to do with all of it. So if you want to learn about some of the new features of the game and how it actually works, and specifically what buttons to press on a controller, it exists. So if you're someone that's stuck waiting and you're watching content, this could also be a way to kind of scratch that itch. And there is a lot of good information in here, alongside them answering some of the frequently asked questions for this beta that you might be interested in. But yeah, just a little highlight of that. Next up, let's talk about your item pouch and how unbelievably limited it is when you initially come here. What we have here are just some of the basic tools. We have a couple of pods, we have a bit of life powder in your rations, the healing options, and yeah, more tools. And then that's it. What if you come across an enemy like, say, Rayal that causes thunder blight? Well, you're gonna need some nullberries, so let's see what we can do about that. We can pull up the map and have a look around, and I can see the icon because I know it. We mark that nullberry and send the Sacret over to it, and great, there's the nullberry. So we grab it, we've got the nullberries, awesome. Now we have 2 nullberries to deal with something as tough as Rayal. That is unacceptable, and I don't want to tell you guys to run around picking up nullberries for ages. So here's my tip. Just go to a tent. At your tent, what you're able to do is go into the item box. So let's go into that. As you can see, in the stories that they've just given us, it's absolutely full of nullberries and other stuff. 1,000 nullberries when I'm getting 2 at a time is unbelievable. So don't run around picking up nullberries because you think you need them for the Rayal fight. You have tons of them right now, immediately. But beyond that, say you're a dual blades player like me, maybe bow, anything that uses a lot of stamina. Why not have energy drinks? Because they're going to be incredibly impactful. So I've stocked up on my luring pods, my dung pods, my screamer pods, flash pods, my traps. For crafting purposes, got different types of barrel bombs. We have herbs, honey, life powder, the rations are updated. We have our energy drink for the stamina, nullberries, antidotes, and we're stocked up on potions. Amazing. So, if you press the left stick on a controller, you can come to item loadouts. They've given us some recommended loadouts, which shows actually quite a variety of sets, but I would recommend you at least make your own. Then you can press triangle, register the loadout, and then boom, we have our own loadout. So every time that I use something, I can come back into one of these tents, press the left stick in, and go to my loadout, and then use it, which will re-equip and restock from the pool in the chest that they've given us for this beta test. So you don't have to run around picking stuff up or crafting stuff remotely as much as you might have thought. Next up, for you bow players, obviously we have this system change to the power coating. At the bottom right, we have the trick shot gauge. So with that, we're able to equip coatings for a bit of that trick shot gauge. From that, we're able to generate 8 coatings overall, every single coating that you're able to use. And a question that I had during, say, Gamescom and the demos and all the information that came out of that is, what about all the other coatings? Well, as it turns out, we can now check this kind of stuff in-game. So all you need to do is pull up the menu, under items and equipment, go to check item pouch, and you can go to coating pouch, and we can see every kind of coating that's going to be in the game. So we have close range is back again confirmed, power, pierce, paralysis, and then we have other status like poison, sleep, blast, and exhaust. These are all going to be things that you can equip and choose between. But for the purpose of our setup, all we have right now is power coating and poison coating specifically. But that doesn't mean these other ones aren't there. We're just, I guess, in a restricted demo version. You can also check information about the palico. Obviously, you will have noticed by now that palico's quite different. Before, we would need to get specific palicos, work on different skills, maybe even level them up, but it's quite different and very forgiving, it would seem, in Wilds. Under palico info in the menu then, you can see information about that. If you're unaware, for example, you can indeed change the weapon and the outfits of the palico. Right now, we have 3 options for the palico under blunt damage, all with the same stats, and then you have 1 for severing. So if you want your palico to be able to cut off tails or things like that, you'd be able to swap that. Then there's the armor sets, which do look very cool, but a lot less impactful. Then we look at the support moves. As you can see, we have a bunch here, and these are all things that it's just going to do right now, which is pretty incredible. Starting with the Vigor Wasp delivery, the classic Bring the Heal to You can be quite impactful, but the Pure Wasp is potentially even better, especially against Rayal. It's a blue version that's going to come deal with blights or abnormal statuses, which is pretty incredible. It will also occasionally taunt monsters. There's Paracons. These are what they're going to place for the little shock trap style things that they have. It looks like an acorn they're placing in the ground, so incredibly useful, well worth drawing into. It has its own little cannon kind of tool thing as an attack option. We have a Song of Power, which is like a hunting horn style buff essentially. Then we have protection as well, which is basically the carting mechanic. But what's nice about this is that when you go down, you get back up, it gives you this buff, and now you have actually more defense than before. So the first time you cart, you get a little bit stronger for a little while. Next up, I want to give you guys a little tip to do with sharpness. Now obviously we have this UI at the top left, we have the sharpness, and as you deal damage with the weapon, you will lose sharpness. So let me just go ahead and lose some. Great, now I've lost some sharpness. You can see that we're no longer green, we're in yellow. And to sharpen, you just pull up the radial wheel and use it. But there's a little cool detail that they've added for Wilds. Before, you would normally have to do the full sharpen animation to get the full thing off, but now you can interrupt it and get benefits from each stage of the sharpness. So the first sharpen I do, I actually went from yellow to green there. A little bit of an increase. See that again? 1 sharpness, interrupt, you see that it gives me that. So I could go for 1 or 2 sharpness and then interrupt it because I only need 2. I don't need the full long animation. And the animation itself takes a lot longer. You got 1, 2, 3, done. You know, we can cut that in half. Obviously, another way, especially in this game, you can use the Sacret where you can sharpen and move at the same time, but it's a nice little trick you can do mid-combat to just get that 1 single sharpness off. Maybe it'll put you back into green or higher in the full game. It's a nice little quality of life that can be a useful trick in the middle of a fight. Okay, next, just a cute little detail for you. Sekrets exist in the Forbidden Lands, and with the tribe that we're going to meet here, we're going to find that they raise them and actually have quite a few here. You'll find not just normal sekrets, but baby ones, with their own little behaviors and interactions. What's actually quite surprising and cute though, and a little thing for this video, is the fact that their behavior changes based on the time or period that you're in. In times of danger like inclemency, the storm, they'll hide in their little cave, in their little den, they won't come out. But say you're in the time of plenty, they'll come out, they'll be happy, they'll be walking around and lots of little different interactions, and that's when you're gonna get to see them the most. But when you change from, say, the time of inclemency to the time of plenty, that's when they come racing out like a little stampede of many little sekrets as a cute little animation to highlight the change of time. It would seem you'd need to be there right as, time changes, but it's a cute little thing that you might completely miss if you're not standing there at the right time. Next up, one that might be quite useful for you guys who are hunting Rayal, and you don't want to wait for one to spawn for however long. If you're unaware, Rayal basically shows up with the sand tide, but what if you're playing in the time of fallow, or after that worse, in a plenty and is already left? Well, one thing that you can do is at the handler, or maybe in a tent, you can go to the quest menu, and go to post shrine quest and choose lobby member quests. Here you're going to see investigations for Rayal, which is going to give you a kind of direct way to get involved with them. But if you want to get these quests yourself rather than rely on online and playing with others, you can unlock this investigation or hunt for Rayal if you hunt the one that appears during the doshaguma quest. So let's say you successfully hunt down Rayal, this will lead to being able to do this optional quest, investigate the Rayal. Otherwise, you can use the online system to investigate it using other people's listings, but you'll have to play in a group if you do that. Speaking of the sekrets and that village, that tribe, there's an elder here that says this: "Fine weather today. Stay, I will tell you the tale of the great bird Samul before you go." This is an interesting thing. It's obviously being speculated about today. Is this just the tribe's name for Rayal? Or could it be, one of the rare endemic lives that we find in this region? That's entirely possible too. Could it in fact be an unrevealed monster that actually is in this locale that we'll see in the full game? Right now, we literally just don't know. But it's an interesting little reveal. The great bird Samult. To me, that doesn't sound like Rayal, but I could believe that it's a rare endemic life. I guess we'll see. Let us know what you think. Speaking of cool animations and stuff like that you might not notice at first, it's the fact that once you made a character, you beat the story mode, you're in the kind of demo state. When you exit the game and go back to the main menu, there's a cool transition cinematic that plays. You're looking at this kind of water or whatever it is at first, and you realize, oh, I'm looking down at a cup of coffee. What this is a little cinematic to show, hey, it's you in the tent, in the camp, hanging out with your palico and with the handler. And this is the new kind of main menu. It's you, the save. What you're currently wearing, what your current outfit is something they've done in the main menu for a long time. It's just this transition away from being in the game to the back to the main menu is super slick. It just feels really good because, as you can see, it takes us to the main menu. We're hanging out, we're standing there, now we're looking at it. Then as we go to look at our save, it's this nice shot of the same location just from a different POV, and then we're loading back in. This is just really slick, and that's how I would describe Wilds, especially after this beta experience so far. Speaking of cool little details and slick stuff, something that we saw from different footage, and I wanted to really look into it, is the fact that you can set stuff on fire accidentally. One of the prime suspects for this is definitely going to be, obviously, Gunlance with all the explosives and big explosions that are going to spread fire in general. Obviously, other weapons are going to be able to do this too. But what's going to happen in tall grass, which is going to be the biggest in this region, this locale, during the time of plenty, it's going to be when you're setting all this grass on fire that you're actually in danger. Not only is it a cool visual thing that we saw really start to scorch the earth, imagine this happening passively while you're taking in on a fight. It's fire, and when you stand in fire, it hurts you. It's not easy to do, surprisingly, but if you light something on fire and then stand in it, it's going to deal little ticking damage, and then you'll have recoverable health after that. So for you Gunlance players, and maybe a few others, be aware that during the time of plenty in those grassy areas, you can actually deal damage to yourself with the fact that you're setting stuff on fire. So just be careful. It's not a lot of damage, but yeah, maybe it could cut you. Lastly for this video, I want to talk about a cool feature. It's the damage numbers that we're seeing. It's kind of strange, but the Gamescom demo versions we'll be looking at were showing, the true raw numbers. But now in the beta, they've changed it to the bloated style. So let me explain what that means. The Great Sword is a great example of this. As you can see, it has attack 480. But before, it was showing the true raw damage, which is 100. And then when you look at something that's going to attack a lot faster, but for smaller numbers, you have the dual blades. And as we can see in game now, it says 139. That's a lot less damage than the greatsword. But obviously it makes sense. Dual blades are going to be attacking a lot faster and hitting a lot more times in the time that a greatsword's going to land one single hit, maybe a charged hit. So to make up the difference, the greatsword hits harder per hit, while the dual blades hits for less, but hits many times. Nothing's new about that, it's just the different ways that they've chosen to show these numbers in the different games. And the old true raw way is just to show 100 for all of them, but then that doesn't showcase all the multipliers and the changes that the weapons actually make. Now with these bloated numbers, what they're doing is they're kind of giving you a better representation of how these numbers accurately represent the weapon. So for newer players, I think it's easier for you to look at this and go, dual blades, okay, 139, makes sense, they attack really quick. Greatsword, that's 480, that's way more, but with a greatsword you attack way slower. For new players, I think that's easier to understand. It's just kind of weird because we don't know whether they're going to stick with true raw, since we've seen them use that before in Wilds, or are they going to stay with bloated now they've brought that to the beta. But yeah, there you have it. Just a list of some interesting stuff or useful details that are going on in the beta on day 1. I hope this was interesting or some of it useful. So let us know if you've seen anything or experienced anything in the beta so far that was unexpected or just interesting. There's a lot we want to talk about for the beta, and I'll be back to talk about more stuff very soon. But for now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.